Hello everyone, in this video we're going to learn the basics of Node.js and Express. This video is split up so you should be able to do any part of the video at any time. Just make sure to grab the GitHub repository so you have the starting and final code. If you need help installing Node.js, then check out the videos where we show you how to set up, install, and use Node Version Manager on Windows and Mac. Please subscribe to the channel for more free tutorials.
Alright, so I have an empty Node Express folder here, and I'm going to go ahead and open that with my command prompt or terminal, and then I'm going to open the whole folder up in a code editor. And then you want to have Node installed, so I'm going to run nvm-v. I'm using Node Version Manager for Windows. So if you run nvm-v, Node v. I'm using 18.12.1 of Node. So that is going to be what we're going to be using throughout the project. And let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to first create, we're just going to create one major project, and then we're going to have a bunch of different separate folders. So I'm going to run npm-init-y to create the package.json file. Okay, and then that is in here. I don't know why they called it Express, but usually they name it the name of the folder. But anyway, we have our project started, so we can go ahead and create our first Hello World project. So I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this hello-world-1. And then inside, we're going to have an app.js file. So new file, app.js. And you know what, actually, let's move this out of the folder, and we're just going to create it outside of the hello world first. So I'm going to go ahead and write a little bit of code, and then I'll explain it. Okay, so we have the top line, we're requiring HTTP, which is a built-in package of Node, and we have a const named hostname, which is just our local host, so 127.0.0.1, and then we have a port number to listen on. So here's our local IP address, and then we have different ports that we can listen on, so you can have multiple things running at the same time. So we're just going to be listening on port 3000. And then we're going to create a server, and oops, I want 200. So we're going to send, the server has a request and response cycle. So a client will make a request to the server, and then the server will respond back with something. And so we're responding with a status code of 200. This says that was 200 range is a successful request response cycle, and then or successful response, and then we're setting the headers, and then we're basically just saying, okay, the response is going to be hello world. And so now when we listen, or we do server.listen to turn the server on, so it's just sitting there idle listening for requests. And it'll be listening at port 3000, because that's the port that we defined here, on this host 127.0.0.1, and then we just have a message that says, hey, we're listening on this host and this port. So if we hit save, and then we run this app.js file, it will create this server that will listen on this host and port. And then when we make a request to the server, it will respond with hello world. So to run this, again, this is a Node app, so we're just going to run node and then the name of the file. So it's app.js. So if I just hit tab, it will automatically fill it in after I've added in a or something like that, app. So node app.js, hit enter. It'll say server running at 127.0.0.1 3000, and this is also localhost. So if we visit localhost in a web browser, we should get that. So localhost :3000, we get hello world. And so there's a couple issues if we change this. So like, let's say hello world 1. We'll save and refresh, and it's still not updated. We would actually have to kill the server with Control-C or Command-C, I think, on a Mac. It might be Control-C, I don't know. So we have to kill the server and then start it up again. And then if we refresh, now it's going to update. We don't want to have to do that all the time. So you can install Nodemon. So npm install -g Nodemon. And then Nodemon is a program that will automatically restart the server anytime there's a change. So I've already had this installed, so you can just go ahead and run this. And then now we have the ability to run Nodemon app.js. And so when you run Nodemon, we no longer have to restart the server. So 1, 2, 3, I'll hit save. And I think it's restarting due to changes. So now if we refresh, we get 1, 2, 3. So that is much easier, much more convenient to deal with. So now we're going to have a bunch of different folders to illustrate a bunch of different concepts. So I want to move this hello world into its own project. So I'm going to hit Control-C, and then I'm going to move this app.js into the hello world. So I'm going to close those out, drag and drop this into hello world 1. And now if I try to run Nodemon app.js, it's not going to work because we can't find the file. So we actually have to tell it, hey, it's in hello world 1. So because we're running this command from Node Express. So I'm going to have to run Nodemon hello world 1 app.js now. And then I also don't want to have to type this in all the time, and it's just going to be more convenient to have all of your starting commands like wrapped up in one area. So we can do that in our package.json. And so I'm going to do that in here. We're going to have a script, and I'm going to call it hello-world-1. And this command, this script here, is going to run the value of whatever this key value property is. So I'm going to write Nodemon hello-world-1/app.js, save. And so now if I want to run this hello world 1 project, I just have to run npm run hello world 1, which will trigger Nodemon hello world 1/app.js. So let's give it a try. npm run hello-world-1, and then I'll hit enter. Okay, it seems to work. And let's go back to our app.js and give it a try. I'm going to add 4. Save. You saw that moving, so I think that was a restart. So let's hit enter, and we get hello world 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are good with our hello world 1 server. And we have a bunch of different projects. There's like 12 or 13 folders that we're going to end up with. So I'm going to go ahead and write these out. You can get those. You can get this file in the GitHub repository, or you can just write it out yourself, however you want to do it. And so now we want to add Express into the mix. So I'm going to create a new folder, and we're going to follow this formula here, or this guideline. So hello Express 2 is going to be our next project, and it's going to be an app.js as well. So I'm going to create an app.js file in here. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and write some code, and I will explain it in a moment. Okay, so in the last app, we created a server off of HTTP. So we required HTTP, and then we called a create server on HTTP, and then we stored that in server. and then we listened on the server. So in this Hello Express app, we're using Express, which does a bit more for us. And then we're storing the Express server in app after calling it. And then we're creating a port of 3000. And then down here, we're saying, okay, here, like listen on the Express server, but listen on the port that we've given. And this function will start the server and send a log that just says, hey, we're listening on this port. And so this app.listen is what turns the server on. And so it listens and sits idle and waits for requests to come in. And then here we have an actual endpoint that a client can make a request to. So this is the root, and we're basically just saying, okay, when this endpoint is hit, respond with this, which is saying hello Express. So we can turn this on by running our command. So npm run and then the folder name. So npm run hello express -2, and again that's defined in the package.json. So npm run hello express 2, which calls Nodemon hello express 2 /app.js. So npm run, and we're going to get an error because we do not have Express installed, and so we're going to need to install that. So npm install Express, enter. And you'll see a package lock.json file showed up and this node modules. And so this node modules has the Express package and all of its dependencies. And so now we're able to actually pull in Express because we have this in our node modules now. So now if I run npm run hello express 2, this should work. Okay, so that is working. Now if we run the localhost 3000, we get hello Express. And so that is our Express app. And so the next thing we're going to do is talk about how you can have multiple kind of like entry points, I guess you could call them, for Express, or basically like multiple places that a client can ask for. So like say you want to view all the users, this would be /users, or maybe you want to view all the products, then it would be /products. So let's do that in a separate folder. So I'm going to close these out, and I'm going to duplicate hello express 2. So I'm just going to copy it, and then we're going to call this get-requests-3. If you don't have this functionality in your text editor, you can just go to the folder and copy and paste it, rename it. But we're going to be working in get requests 3 now, which just has this simple root endpoint and the listen. So the next thing we're going to do is create an array of products so we can query on these products. Okay, I went and saved that and it automatically reformatted it, but we have an array of products. I'm going to go ahead and just scroll down so you can make sure you got it all written. You can also get it in the GitHub repository. Okay, so we have all of our products, but we don't have a way to display them to the client or in the web browser, to the user using the app. So let's say we want to get all of the product names. We don't want all the details, just the names. Well, we can do that. We can create an endpoint that makes sense. So I'm going to call this product names. So app.get/product names. And then we'll do a res, and next. And so this stands for request, this stands for response, and this stands for next, which is a function that sends the server off to the next step. So here in the body of this function, we can't just res.send something. So let's just start with that. So res.send product names, and then if we visit this root endpoint, we'll get hello express. But if we hit product names, we hit enter. Oops, what happened? Oh, it's because I need to restart the server. So I'm currently listening on Hello Express 2, but we created the get requests 3, so I'm going to need to run npm run get -requests -3. Okay, and now if we hit product names, we'll get product names, and then the root will just get the Hello Express. And now we have 2 places that the client can request on the server. So product names, but we don't want to just have a hard-coded string. We want the actual products. So what we can do is we can just query this products array. So we have the products array right here. Whether you import it from a database or pull it in, as a hard-coded array like this, it doesn't matter. The point is we have an array of products, and we just have to map to get the product names. So I'm just going to do this. Will take the array and map to a new array called product names, where we only have the title of each product. So now I can rest.send the product names, which is the array of product titles. So if I save that and refresh, now we get all of the names of each of the products. We can name another route to get the details of each product, and we can do that with parameters. So if we go here and we make a new endpoint, we'll call this app.get product ID. Okay, so now we have a URL with a variable value inside of it. So if we were to hit this, this determines the shape of the endpoint. And so we have something that we can put different values in. So let's just give it a try first. So /product/ and then this :ID. So if we go here and we do /product/4 and we hit enter, we're going to get temp no matter what we put in here in this ID placeholder. But if you look at the terminal, we see that we get rec.params, a 4, 5, or 2, depending on what you have inside of this little placeholder. And so we can access that placeholder in our code, and then we can use that to filter out results in the product. So if we want the 4th product, we can just use product/4, and then now we have the ID of 4 available to us in our rec.params. So now we can use the rec.params.id to get the ID, or to get the product with that ID. So let's give that a try. Okay, so I have used the find method on the products array to find the product with the product ID that matches the rec.params.id, which is 4 in our case. So then we store that in the const of product, and then we log it out. So if we hit refresh, here in our code, we can see product with the ID of 4, title kayak, pink, and 400 in the category. So we have our product available, and then if we try it with 3, we'll get the 3rd product. And so now we have a way to query and find each product in our database. So now we can just send that back to the user. So instead of temp, we're going to say product, save. And now we have a way to send each of the products to the user. And you can do this with as many variables or parameters in the query or in the URL as you want. So a good exercise would be to do something like
this, and then you can query for the product IDs and the user IDs. And then you can send back both a user and a product. So that's a good exercise to try. And then the next thing is searching. So we want to be able to search a database and have like advanced filtering options. And you can do that with query parameters. So we're going to make a search endpoint now. And so first of all, I left a comment about the parameters, but down here in the search endpoint, the query parameters begin in the URL where after the first question mark. So we have the search endpoint and then a question mark, and then here are our parameters. So we have a couple example parameters, and I forgot to do a rest.send. So rest.send TMP for now. So let's copy and paste this, or you can just type it in yourself, but 3000/search question mark title equals cup and price equals 40. So I'm going to copy this, paste it in here, and again, search endpoint question mark title equals cup and price equals 40. So if I hit enter, oh, what's going on here? I think I forgot to save the file. So, yep, save, and then let's try refreshing again. Okay, so we get the temp, and then in our code, we are not console logging. So let's console.log rec.query, save, and let's refresh the browser and then take a look at our terminal. And so we get our rec.query, we're getting title and price in the rec.query object, so we can use the title and the price to filter our results. And so if you wanted to filter for some other title, you would just enter a different title here in the query parameters. So that's basically how we can query in the client, and then we'll send this to the server, and then it will filter those results for us. So let's write the code to filter the products. Okay, so we have our results. So basically this is just a filter, an array filter. So we're filtering the products array. If the product.title includes the string that is in the query.title, the query parameters that we entered in the URL, then return that product. If the price is less than or equal to the price given in the URL, then return that product as well. So we're doing like an or. If either of these requirements fit the result, then we'll return that result to the user. And then now, instead of doing rest.send, we can do rest.json as well. So rest.json allows us to send an object, and we can store the count first, so we can see how many results have been displayed. So I'm going to say count results.length, and then results. So we'll save, and then now if we hit refresh, we get count 2. So for the cup and the quick draws are less than the price of 40 or have the word cup in it. And so let's add a couple zeros at the end of this price, and we get all of the results. And then we can go back to, I don't know, like 100, and then just have the letter P. And then we get 6 results. So this is the ability to query with query parameters. And that's it for the get requests 3. So I'm going to close this file out and kill the server. And then I think I'm going to duplicate hello express 2, because we're going to talk about importing and exporting next. And so I'm gonna rename it importing exporting -4.
So importing hyphen exporting hyphen 4. And then in here, we're going to talk about how to import data from multiple files, because we don't want everything in a single file. That would get messy and hard to read. So there's a couple different ways to import and export. So the first thing is, we're going to create a myfunctions file. So I'm going to right click, new file, myfunctions.js, and then I'm going to go ahead and write some code out. Okay, so we have two functions, say hello, say goodbye, and then we are using this module keyword and a .exports on it to export each of these functions. So if we don't want to export all of them, we don't have to. We would just not include them in the module.exports. And so when we do this, we have the ability to import these. So in our app.js, we can import these functions with const myfunctions equals require myfunctions. And so we can name this whatever we want, but I just like to name it the same name as the file. And the important part is that you're requiring it from the location. So it's /myfunctions, because this is saying it's the same folder as where this is currently being requested from, and then the name, and then you don't use the .js. So if this was out here, then it would look like this, // to go back a directory. So anyway, that is how we import the myfunctions, and then we can actually use those functions. So there we go. And let's try to run this program. So npm run importing hyphen exporting hyphen 4. Okay, and there we get hey Bob and hey Tim. We don't even have to hit an endpoint. We can also import specific functions or pieces of data from other files using the curly braces. So I'm going to make a new file, and I'm going to call this other functions.js. I'm going to go ahead and write out a bunch of code here, and we'll talk about it in just a moment. Okay, so in this file, we have two functions and then an array, and we're exporting the functions and the array just like the other file, but this time we're going to import it a little differently. Instead of importing the whole thing, we're just going to import the functions individually, and we're going to give them the exact same name as what they are in the other file. So I'm going to say const count hippos, make chili, and not a function, equals require other functions. So now we have access to these functions and or data as they are named in the other file. And so if I want to run the count hippos function, I just do count hippos. And then we have our products. So I'll save, and then refresh, and we get I am counting hippos, and then we get our array of products stored in the not a function. And that is it for importing and exporting. And there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with destructuring, so be sure to check out some destructuring stuff. So we'll cover that in another video, but that's it for this. And the next thing we're going to do is HTML in Express. And I named it HTML in Node, but oh well. HTML-in-node-5. Enter. We're going to kill the server. And then I duplicated the Hello Express 2. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to add an Express static, or we're going to add an app.use, which is middleware, but we're going to get to middleware later on. But we're going to write in express.static and then the location of a public folder. So html-in-node-5/public. And then now we can make a public folder in our HTML in Node 5 public folder. So HTML in Node 5, we're going to make a new folder called public. And then inside this public, we're going to add some script, HTML, JavaScript, and style sheet. So I'm going to make hello.html, style sheet.css, and a script.js. And so in here, I'm just going to say console.log. And then in the style sheet, we're just going to make a simple background change. Save. And then in the hello.html, we're going to grab like an HTML shell document. So I'm just going to type in HTML shell. And then we can just copy and paste this into our editor. And yep, style sheet. And I don't think I have a script already. So at the end of the body tag, I'm going to write script src equals script.js. Close the script tag. That way we've imported this script tag here. And then I'm going to say I am hello.html in HTML in node-5/public. Oops, there. Okay, so now we should be able to access this hello.html page because we have this express.static or HTML in node 5 public. So we're basically saying look for static files in this folder here. And so now if we restart the server first, so npm run html-in-node-5, and then we go to localhost 3000 /hello.html, hit enter, and we get this, and then we also get the script. If we inspect and look at the dev tools, in the console we get hello there yo, which is our script from the JavaScript file here. So that is HTML in Node. And now we're going to duplicate HTML in Node 5, and we're going to use this for our 6th folder. So the 6th project is post-request-json-db-6. And we're going to go in there and into our app. And in this project, we're going to learn about post requests and writing to a JSON file. And so we're going to use the exporting feature to import a JSON file. And so we need to create that file. So I'm first just going to import it, even though it doesn't exist. We're going to say const products equals require /products.json. So now we need to create a products.json file in the 6 folder here. So I'm going to make a new file, products.json, and I would probably recommend just going to the GitHub repository and finding this code because it's going to be a pain to type out, but I'm going to type it out here and I'll be back. Just kidding, I did not type it out, but this is basically an object duplicated 9 times, so you can just make an ID, title, color, price, and category property, and then fill it out with all of the information. So they're all strings except the price, which is an integer or a number. And so we've got about 9 products. I'm just going to scroll slowly so you can see all of it, just in case for whatever reason the GitHub repo isn't available. Okay, so those 9 products, you can save those, and then we should be able to import it into our app file. And then the next thing we need is
a post request. And we're going to make that right underneath our get request. So I'm going to write the code, and I'll talk to you in just a second. And so this time we have a post request, and post requests are hit a little bit differently. So for example, with all the other endpoints we've done so far, you just type them in the web browser. And by default, they're GET requests. So this isn't going to work. So if we try /simple form submit and hit enter, it's not going to work. The capitalization is correct. It still doesn't work. And that's because we're trying to get a post request. You can't get a post. So how do we post to this form or to this endpoint? Well, we can do that with the HTML form, and we'd actually need to create this HTML form. So let's first import, like how we did in this app.use express.static. So we're looking at HTML in Node 5 for a public static file, which is our HTML file. This isn't going to work because we're trying to get it in the Node 5 folder, and we're in the request.json db6. So let's switch this out. So that should work now. So now we're pulling in this public folder and the HTML folder file inside of it. So let's go in here and let's change this. I'm just going to say 6 because I'm lazy. But now we need to create an HTML form in here. So I'm going to go ahead and write a little bit of code, and I will explain in just a second. Okay, so we have a form tag with a method of post, meaning we will be able to hit the routes of type post, or the endpoints of type post. And so this action is the location of the endpoint. So we're saying go to localhost port 3000 /simple form submit. And so this entire app is running on localhost port 3000. And so then it's looking for the /simple form submit. So when the form hits this endpoint, it's going to hit and run. It's going to process the code inside here. So we should be able to submit that form, and we should be able to get back this text here. So I'm going to save everything, and then I'm going to go to this. Oh, well, we need to go to the HTML file. So in localhost, we need to find a way to get to this HTML form, and that's in the hello.html file. And we get to that by visiting how we did in the last project. So visit the hello.html file. So hello.html, .html. Okay. And this is still getting the HTML in Node 5. I think I need to kill the server again. Yep, so we're still listening on the Node 5. So npm run post -request -json -db -6. Okay, and now let's hit enter. And now we get I am hello in HTML6 public. So we're going to enter a thing to submit. It doesn't actually matter what we submit. We just get temp form submitted, and nothing really happens. So now we want a way to actually post this information and be able to interact with the information that the user entered into the form in the actual app itself. And so we actually, when we hit the submit button, we actually have this data. We can see that it's being sent to the server. If we click on the network tab, we can do an advanced, we're going to do a DevTools video, but if you click network, and then there should be like a status 200, simple form submit. If we look at the payload, we can actually see that there's form data being sent to the server. And we need to be able to access that on the actual server. So let's go back to our code,
And Express needs a little bit of help being able to access the form data that was sent to the server on that request. So the way that we do that is by using this package called body parser. So we can import it with const body parser equals require body hyphen parser. And then we can add this into app.use so every request has access to it. Again, we'll talk about middleware very soon. But app.use body parser and then URL encoded extended true is basically just going to allow us to access the form data in the request, like via rec.body. So once we have this, then we can do console.log rec.body in form submit. So rec.body, and then I'm gonna hit save, and I'm gonna go back to hello.html, and then I'm gonna enter something else. I'm gonna hit add, and then look at the terminal, and it's going to say rec.body in form submit, do stuff, and then this information here. So now we have a way to interact with the user's input. So let's go back to the code, and we're very close to being able to write new products into the database, or the quote-unquote database now. We just have to be able to write things to the JSON file, and so that's what we're going to cover now. So I'm going to make another post request, app.post for new product. And now instead of sending just one item in a form, we need to be able to send all of the data for the ID, title, color, price, and etc. So we are going to need to update our form, and I'm just going to make a new form underneath this one. Okay, so we have a new form with an h1 tag that just says add a new product. Again, it's a post, only this time the action is to the new product endpoint. And then we've got a couple different form inputs. So we've got title, color, price, and category. Everything's a text field except this number type for the price. So we're going to save that, and then save, we have nothing here in this new product, so I'm just going to say rest.send tmp. So let's also just get the rec.body out of this. So I'm going to say console.log rec.body from new product rec.body, save, and then refresh. We want the hello.html. Okay, so now I'm going to add some dummy information. We're going to hit add new product. And then if I go back to the log, rec.body from new product, we get the title, color, price, and category. So that should be enough to fill out a new product object and push it to the products array. So let's go ahead and do that. So we already have our product being imported from the products.json over here. So let's just push the new product. Okay. And then if you want to just verify that this works, we could console.log the products just to see. And now I'm just going to go ahead and keep going with it though, because I know this works. So the next thing that we want to do is write the JSON file. So we're going to edit it. And we do that with another package called fs. So up at the top, we're going to import fs. So const fs equals require fs, which stands for file system. And so we can use that to write the file, which is actually pretty simple. It's basically just fs.write file, and then the location of the file. So from where our server starts, we want to look in the post request JSON DB6 folder. and write to the products.json. Okay, so we don't actually have a products page yet. We'll get that done in a second, but let's just check to see if this works. So let's go back to hello.html and then enter some stuff. So I'm going to enter skateboard and sport. Okay, so add new product. You added the product, check the existing products page, and so we don't have that, but we can check the products.json. So let's save this, and it should reformat it, hopefully. If it doesn't for you, depending on your editor, just look at the last object. We should be able to see the ID of 10, the skateboard, whatever product info you added. So again, just to rehash, what's happening is the form, this name corresponds to the rec.body. So like this, in this title input field, where the name is title, that means there's going to be a rec.body.title, and then the same thing for color, price, and category. So we're getting all of that information from the rec.body, from the request from the client, and we are taking that object and we're pushing it onto the existing product array, which could be from a database, but from now it's just our JSON file. We make that array one object longer with the new object, and then we write the existing post request JSON DB6 folders products.json file with the new products array. So it overwrites it, and now that's how we end up with this products.json file that is one object longer because of what the user entered in the form. So that's how that works. And I don't like this. I'd rather it automatically redirect us to a products page. So in order to do that, we need to first create a products page. And I think we already have one. So I'm just going to find it from our previous. So we have get product names. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. Copy, and then go back to our JSON DB6 folder. And I'm going to say app.getProductNames. And so now if we save this, let's try to go to product names, enter, and we get all of the names of all the products. So now we should be able to automatically redirect to this file, to this endpoint after the user submits a new product. So let's give that a try. But we need to make the redirect happen. And so I'm gonna comment this rest.send out, and instead of responding with data, we're gonna respond with a redirect. So again, the server responds to every client's request in some way. And so we're gonna say, after the form submits, the server is going to respond by redirecting the client to a different endpoint. Which endpoint is that? We're going to redirect to product names so they can see the new product that they've added. So I'm going to say rest.redirect and then /product names. So redirect to this endpoint. So they're going to get sent over here with the updated information. So let's give it a try. Save, and then hello.html. And now I'm going to say float blue $87 and sport category. So add new product, and now we get float. And we're only going to get it float because that's how we've specified this route, to only get the names. So you could get the product titles if you wanted, but I'll let you do all that. So I think that is it for the products JSON DB6 folder. The next thing we're going to talk about is environment variables. And we're going to make a new project for this. And we're actually just going to use the Hello World 1. So we're going to copy that. And I'm going to call it env-7. And
now in here, all we really need to do is require the .env package. So require .env, and I don't know why they have they do such a weird requirement method. So, but this is just how it is. So require .env.config, and then from here we can grab the secret variables from the env file. And so again, an env file is meant to store secret information. So like API keys, secret keys, anything that really shouldn't be known to the public can be stored in the .env file. And so occasionally you'll need to access it. So like if you have a Google Maps API key, you'll need to access that. And so the way that you can do that is just doing something like const, and then whatever your key is, so my secret key equals, and then it's process.env dot the name of the key in the file. So I'm going to name this secret_key, save, and then we can console log that secret key. So I'm going to console.log. Okay, so the problem is that we don't actually have any secret key or an env file. So we need to make this env file, and I'm going to put it in the root directory, so in the same level as the package.json file. So new file .env, and then in here we can name our key. So here in this file we're trying to grab the secret key, all caps. So we'll want to name a variable in this env the same as what we're trying to access. So secret_key equals, and then I am a secret. So I'll save, and then I'm going to kill the server and restart it. So npm run env-7. Okay, and it crashed because we cannot find the module .env. So that's a package that we need to pull in and install ourselves. So npm install .env. Okay, and then let's try to run it again. npm run env7. Okay, and then now we get my secret key. I am a secret 123. And so secret key, I am a secret 123. And so now we can store any secret information in your .env file. And then you want to add the .env file to your .getignore file. So you want to make sure you have .getignore, and then you could do something like .env. But I don't want to remove it because it's part of the tutorial. So I'm just going to say that or something like that. So that's how you hide the files so they're not available in a GitHub repo. And then, yeah, this is basically environment variables. The next thing we're going to cover is Pug or views or view engines in Express. And we're going to copy hello Express 2. So I'm going to duplicate that one, and I'm going to name it Pug-views-8. And then in here, I'm going to open up the app.js file. And we're going to add a few things that we've already covered. Okay, and we need a products.json file now. So let's find that. I think we had one here. So I'm just going to copy from the db6 folder and paste it into the 8 folder. Okay, so that'll give us some products to work with. And then we're going to be using the body of a request. So I'm going to add that. Okay. And then the first new thing that we're going to do is add a view engine. So I'm going to say app.set view engine, comma, Pug. And so this will set Pug as the view engine for Express. And so if we run this, it's not going to work. We need to install Pug. And rather than just watching an error happen, I'm just going to install it. So npm install Pug. And then we can run the Pug Views 8 folder. So npm run Pug Views -8. And that should start up the server.
Okay. So the first thing we want to do is when using a view engine, we need a views folder for the views to be stored in. And so by default, they're typically stored in the root of the project. So I think there is a way to customize that, but I haven't looked into it. So I'm just going to make a new folder called views in the root. And then we're going to make some views. So I'm going to make a new file in views called index.pug. And then this is going to basically just be an HTML file with a little bit of syntactic sugar to make things a little easier. So we have an HTML tag, and then inside the HTML we'll have a head, and inside here we'll have, inside the head you can have a title to set the title to something. And because we're using the equal sign, this title is going to be a variable that we can pass in to the index view. And I recommend you checking out the Pug documentation if you want to learn more. I'm just kind of going to go through this a little bit quick. So we have the title, and then in the same level as the head, so like the head and the body are going to be siblings of each other. So inside the body tag, we're going to have an h1, and we can set a variable, but let's just try this for now. So I'm going to save this, and let's see the basic view of the index. So in our index route, instead of doing rest.send, we're going to do rest.render and then index. So if we save this and go here and go to localhost 3000, we should get this pug view. So this is the message AS random text that we have from our pug view. And so we can add in a variable. So we'll use this equals to pass in a custom message. That way we can reuse this file over and over again with different variables being passed in. So h1 equals our message, and I'm going to save this, and now in our app we can actually send a specific message. So rather than just doing rest.render index, we can do rest.render index with an object with the data. So I'm going to say title equals hey, and message equals hello there. So now if I save, refresh, we get hello there, and you can see the title is hey. So that's basically how the variables work. And then now we can pass in our products. So from our products array here that we've imported from our JSON file. So we can pass those in. And let's try to keep going here and just get the basics of Pug down first. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make an unordered list. So in the same level as h1, I'm just going to make an h2 and make it simple static unordered list. Then we're going to make a ul list, and inside the unordered list we're going to have list items. We're going to make item 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so this is a custom, or this is just a static unordered list. Right? Nothing special about it. So how do we get our products? Well, we can pass in the products. So we'll have to pass in like products. So this is our first dynamic bit of data, which is going to be all the products. So I'm going to save this, and then now we have access to the products variable in Pug. So from here, we can make a second unordered list. I'm going to say h2 dynamic list, and we're going to make another unordered list, but this time we're going to loop through the list of products. And you can do that with this each keyword. Again, check out the Pug documentation. By each product in products. So this is basically just like a for loop. And then we'll say li list item equals the product.title. So now we have the product.title as the list item instead of just static hard-coded data. And again, it's going to do one for each item in the element in the products array. And we've named it each item, like through the loop, we've named it product. So hopefully that makes sense. Just a simple for loop. So if I save that, refresh, now we get the dynamic list, cup, quick draws, all of our products. So if we want these lists to be clickable, say we want to be able to go to that endpoint for that specific product. Well, we can do that by using an href tag. So let's make another list. We'll call this one dynamic clickable list. Again, it's going to be an unordered list, each product and products. And this time we're going to make our list items clickable. So to make them clickable, we'll have an href tag, and that it looks like this. Okay, so all of the href tags are going to go, or all of the links are going to go to the test endpoint. And a list item is going to be nested inside of this href tag. So we're going to add a tab to make it indented underneath A. So it's going to be li equals product.title. So let's save that and refresh. Now we have a dynamic clickable list, but each item goes to the test endpoint. We want it to actually go to a dynamic endpoint. So the cup is going to go to the endpoint with the cup's ID in the URL. So we want to do that. And you can check out the get requests section to learn more about that. So we're going to make one more list, h2 clickable list with dynamic links. So to do this, again, we need a for loop. So each product in products. And so these loops in Pug actually allow us to have scope. So we can set a variable. So we can say var URL param is equal to product.id. So we're setting the URL param to equal the current loop iterations product ID property to the URL param. And then we can use that throughout the rest of the loop. So I'm going to do something like href equals localhost 3000 product slash and then plus the URL param. Oh, and I'm missing parentheses there. Okay, so we're going to end up creating this slash product slash URL param or slash product ID route or link. And then in here, we can just name it li equals the product.title. So we can save this, refresh, and now we finally get the thing that we're looking for, which is product 7, product 8, product 3. So now we can click and go to those specific endpoint. And I made a mistake here. This each is nested in the h2, so that means everything is wrapped in an h2 tag. I don't want that. I want this to all be wrapped in a ul. So I think if I save that, that should fix the issue. Okay, there we go. So again, each item links to its own dedicated route with the parameter. So we need to make that route now. And so at this point, there's nothing new that I'm going to show you in this next part. So I'm just going to write this out and then I'll briefly explain it. Okay, I know that was a lot, but let's just take a brief look. The first thing is an app.get test route, just to kind of make sure that those links aren't broken in the previous page. And then the other thing we did was we made a slash product ID route.
which searches through the products array and finds the element that matches the product ID. And then we store it in the product const, and then we send that to a product pug page with the product in as the data that gets passed in. And then we added a product.pug page in our views to allow this render to work. So in our product.pug page, we have the product.title as the title of the head, and then we have the body, which is just an H2 for product details, and then we print out the title and then some random text, and then the price and the color. And then we have a form to allow the user to update the product. And then finally, an H2 link to go back to the products page. So that's it. And I know that's a lot of typing. You can go get it on the GitHub repo if you want, but let's just make sure that it works. So if we refresh, we should be able to click on the test route, and that should take us here. There's nothing to see there though. So the more interesting thing is this clickable list with dynamic links. So if we click Blender, we should get Blender. Yep, and so we get this with the random text, we get the price and the color, and we get a form to be able to update the product. And this form doesn't work yet. And so if you'd like to do a challenge, then I've already set up the form to work. So you can just create this endpoint and allow the user to update the specific product. So go ahead and give that a try, and then I'm just gonna write it out so we can keep going. Okay, so this is the code that I wrote. It's definitely in need of a refactor, like definitely, but I guess I'm a little lazy. And anyway, what we're doing here is we are passing the data from the form that the user enters or submits, and we can access that data from the rec.body. And then we have the ID and title, color, price, and category all from that form. And so the first thing is we find the product's index, where it is in the array. And so we find it with the array.findIndex method, and we match the rec.body.id with the product in the array's ID. So we find the product index, and then we send that index into the products array. So like this product index.title is just, you know, if we're updating ID of 4, then it'll find the matching products and the .title, and then set that equal to rec.body.title, which was submitted in the form. If the rec.body.title doesn't exist, then we set it to the existing title, what it already is. So we either update it or set it to what it already is. And we do that for the title, the color, and the price, and the category. And then we have an updated array, and then we write that array to the pug-views-8/products.json file. And then we overwrite the existing products with the current products in this array. And then once that's done, we redirect the user back to that page to see the updated data. So let's see if that works. And that's just the way that I did it. There's multiple ways that you could do it. So I'm going to hit enter here, and we have Blender on the table, or just Blender because this is just random text. So let's change the color and the price. So I'm going to change the color to orange and the price to 168. I'm going to hit submit. And there we go. Price is now 168 and the color is orange. So we have the ability to update our products now, and then we can also go back to the home page and we can see that the updates would work, but we don't have any of the updates that we made showing up in this in the home page. So I think that is it for Pug Views 8. We've learned about, updating existing objects in the database, and we've learned about views. So I'm going to close this out, and then we can start on the 9th project. So let's copy the Hello Express 2. I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to call it Middleware-9. And then we're going to open the app.js file, and I'm going to copy this one, and I'm going to make another one called with the endpoint of 2. And so what we have is just a function that just render, or 2 endpoints that just render some text. And what you may want to do is have something run before, or run on every single request. So maybe you want it to run on this one and on this one and all the other endpoints. Well, you can do that with middleware. And then you can also do stuff where, you know, you only run it on a handful of routes. But essentially middleware just gets run on every request. And so if you want to add a middleware function, what you can do is you can just make a function and then put it in app.use. So I'm going to make a function called say hello. And then if we want this say hello function to be used in every single request, again, we just put it in app.use. And I'm actually going to comment the next out because I want to show you what happens without it. So what we're going to do is we're going to run app.use say hello. And then I'm going to hit save. And then we have to kill the server and start it over again. So I'm going to run npm run middleware-9. There we go. And so now let's try to hit this endpoint here. So if I hit it, you'll notice that the circle here, it's always loading. It never stops. However, we do get hello and rec.query. So we get hello and then this empty rec.query because we don't have anything in there, but it gets stuck. It never actually sends us this hello express. And that's because what happens is before this endpoint gets hit, the request passes through the say hello function. And so it gets stuck here because it's never told to move to the next function. So that's what next is for. We have to use next to say, hey, go ahead and go to the next middleware function or the next function in the series of functions that the request is supposed to go through. So next allows it to hit the final endpoint. So I'm going to hit save, refresh, and then finally we get it. And so if I hit enter again, it goes through the say hello, and then it finally hits the root endpoint and returns hello express. And if we look in our terminal, we get hello rec.query. And so that's middleware. And the nice thing about this function is it gets run when we hit the to endpoint as well. So if I hit 2, it goes, and if we look at the terminal, we get one more hello and rec.query. And so that's essentially middleware. And middleware is great for things like authentication. So say you, like every route, the user needs to be logged in. So you want to pass it through an auth middleware function, and you can reject the user's request to visit that page if they're not authenticated or something like that. So that's one of the many use cases of middleware. You may also see that sometimes people will have return next versus just next. And so you want to be careful with this, because if you don't return the next function, then something else below it will run. So I am running after next. So now if we hit this say hello, refresh, I am running after next. And so this may or may not be what you want. So generally, if once you've hit the next, you don't want to do anything else after it, usually. So what we typically would want to do is hit return. That way this code is never actually run. So now if I save and refresh, it's not going to run it because it's been, like, once you hit the next, it's been returned. So that's just something to keep in mind. And to clarify, this log here in this function is not going to run anything else. Nothing else in this function is going to get run after you return next. But if it has another middleware function, so next just sends the program to the next function in the chain of middleware functions. And then eventually it will hit the endpoint that it was targeting, and it will run all the code in there. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so the next thing that I want to show you is that the rec object, if updated anywhere in the chain, it will be updated for all of the subsequent functions. So if we add a user object before this say hello, then that user object will be available in the say hello. So let's say I make a function called add user. So I'll say app.use add user, and then we make this add user function. So then because this add user function gets run before say hello, then this rec, and they're still working with the same rec object. So this rec.user will be available in say hello. So let me just rec.user, save. Okay, so now if I refresh, oops, and once again we have that problem because this add user needs to call next as well. And then we may want to return it just to be safe. Okay, so let's refresh, and we see here we get rec.user, name Bob, age 41. And then we have that user available in this endpoint or all the other target endpoints as well. And the kind of neat thing is you can intercept the request and redirect. So let's say here, I'm gonna copy this one again, and I'm gonna paste it, and I'm gonna make it name the endpoint name bad. And so I'm gonna say bad route. So we can, let's say in this say hello, there's some kind of error that is found. And so we say if true, and this would be a condition that may or may not happen, but we can say rest.redirect to bad route. So if some condition, then we can just redirect. And this would stop everything from happening, and this would, so the user would never end up hitting this endpoint because they wouldn't make it there, because they have to pass through add user and they have to pass through say hello, and say hello stops them in their tracks and says, hey, something bad happened, so we need to take you here instead. So let's see this in action. And we actually can't do this because this is going to cause an infinite loop. So I'm going to comment this out, but I am going to make an interception function. So I'm going to say function intercept and then we're going to return next, but then we're just going to use this on some of the functions. Okay, so if true, then redirect to the bad route, and it's never going to make it here because this is, this is going to be always true. But what we have, let's set this function up so it doesn't always run, but only runs on a couple of functions. So what we can do is we can actually put this intercept function inside of these routes as a parameter of the get route or the post route. So I'm going to make another one. So I'm gonna copy this bad, and I'm gonna say, I don't know, return bad or something. And then what's gonna happen is we're gonna put this intercept function inside of here. So I'm gonna say intercept, comma. And so before it gets to this return bad, it's actually going to run the intercept function first. And so this intercept function is going to have, the request is going to pass through it. And so if we want to, we can respond. So anyway, let's give it a try and see what happens. And again, this route is return bad. So I'm going to save. I'm going to refresh. And if you're on the 3000/bad, it's just going to take you to bad route. But if I say return bad, hit enter, it's going to redirect me to the bad route. And then if we were to make this false, it's not going to do that. It's just going to return next. And so the next function after this is this one, which will res.send bad route. And let's actually say return bad. So we'll save that. And now if I go return bad and hit enter, it says return bad. So hopefully that makes sense. It passes through each one of these functions. And then, so if it passes, goes through here. If it hits the next, then it will go to here. If it does not hit next, then it will get stuck in there. And then you can also add another function that looks just like this underneath. So I'm going to copy this and add a comma and then paste it in here. And let's comment this one out and just say console.log, just another middleware function. And then we'll hit save, refresh. Oops, and then because once again there's no next, it's gonna get stuck in here. So we need to call the next. So I'm gonna add the next parameter and then I will call it. And then you can use return if you want to. So I'm gonna hit save, refresh, and it did return bad. And then if you look at the log, it's going to call just another middleware function also. And then because app.use and app.use add user and say hello are in here, it's going to run those two functions as well. So I think that's it for middleware. Let me just go back up here and add a comment to make it clear what this conditional does. I think a good exercise for you would be to make a middleware function called isAuthenticated and then use that to either intercept and redirect to a login page if the user is not authenticated, and then allow them to see the secured content if they are authenticated. And then you could make the authentication happen however you want. Maybe do like a 50% of the time randomly it will say they're unauthenticated, or you could, make a UI that kind of handles that. So however you want to do that, but I think that's a good exercise to practice this middleware stuff. So hopefully this note makes sense, and that is it for middleware 9. So now I'm going to make the error handling page, and I'm going to copy from Hello Express 2 again. So I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to call it error-handling-10. Okay, and then let's open that up. So there's a couple different ways to handle errors in Node.js or JavaScript. And the main takeaway, I think, is to keep in mind that it's okay for error. Like when you actually have an error, it's generally like an application crash of some sort. Like maybe they can't connect to the database or something along those lines. And so it's okay for an error to actually, display some big nasty message. And because the front end is going to take, usually in a production app, the front end is going to take that message and then process it however you decide. So keep in mind that the front end has a lot of power that we're not able to utilize with these simple examples. So let's start with just a simple error. And I'm just going to say throw new error broken. Save, and then I'm going to hit enter. And it's not going to work because we need to restart the server. So npm run
error hyphen handling hyphen 10. Okay, and then now if we hit this route, it's just going to give us this stack trace with an error, and then the error message. And so that's a simple error. We can also just use the message of the error instead of that whole entire stack trace. So let's make another endpoint. Okay, so now we're actually creating an error, but we're not throwing an error. And so what we end up doing is we take that message property off the error object and send it back to the user. And the message in this case is going to be whatever you passed into the error object. So this string here. So if we hit the endpoint /message, it's going to just send us back an error message without an actual error happening. So message, there we go. And so now we have this error message. And this is powerful especially in the front end, because you can actually throw the error here, and then the client will usually respond. It will send the error back to the client, and the client can take the error.message property off of it and then display that to the client. So try-catch is built into JavaScript, and I'd like to show you how to work with that a little bit. So I'm going to make another endpoint, app.get try-catch. Okay, so what I made here was a login endpoint to redirect the user to in case you want to. And in this try-catch, we're going to just create a try-catch block which attempts to do something that might fail. And then if it does fail, it catches it and then receives the error object as a parameter. And then you can handle the error however you want. So let's just try logging it first. So I'm going to hit save, and then we can visit this /try-catch endpoint. So /try-catch, hit enter, and it says in the try-catch endpoint, because I spelled it wrong. I'll leave it like that. So basically what happens here is we get an error, or we try to log this thing, but because there's no search, this ends up as undefined, and then we're trying to extract the hey property off of something that's undefined. So that doesn't exist, that triggers an error. And then this error gets triggered, so we end up in this catch block with the error object that was created in the try section. And then we just log out the error.message. You could log out the whole property, but we're just going to log the .message portion. So if we go in here, we have chosen to just log the error message and continue on as normal. And so we continue on as normal. That's why we end up with this rest.send in the try-catch endpoint. So we end up here. So if you do not want to do that, you can hijack it in the catch block. So let's see, we can log it still, but let's also try to redirect to the login page. Say this is like a failed login or something like that. We can hit save, and then we'll try to hit the endpoint again. It's going to redirect us to the login page now, because again, this is how we handle the error. And then, if you don't want to redirect, you could just rest.send, you broke our app. So let's try the try-catch, and it just sends it, you broke our app. And then the other thing you could do is use next. And so you can pass errors into next, and it will handle the error for you. So we just do next error, well actually error, refresh, oops, wait, what happened here? Okay, we do not want to redirect or send. We're just going to see what this next does. So I'm going to save. Oops. Try catch. And it does handle the error, but it still continues on. So we still end up in this, in the try-catch endpoint. So you may or may not want that. And it's a good idea to get in the habit of returning these responses. So return and then return next. So I'm going to save that and we'll just try it again. I think it's going to be the same. Oh, interesting. Yep. Okay. So that was what I was actually looking for. So if you return next error, it's just going to give us the error. So I think what happened is the next didn't actually do anything, and then we ended up finally using the response or sending with the response. So this is the actual response from the server. So we got the error, but we didn't actually respond technically. So by adding this return, we actually got something different. So it is a really good idea to get in the habit of this. But anyway, what happens here is we're sending the error into the next middleware function, and because we're returning the next function, the Express server is able to handle the error for us, and this is actually what we want. And so this is going to be the same concept, this next step here, but let's create a function, and this can be a middleware function, or you can just inject it into specific endpoints. However you want to do it is up to you, but I'm going to make this function. And then we're going to use this in the app.use, and I'm going to app.use the function. So this is going to get run in the process of every request. So this gets run before any of these get run. So because success is false, it's going to make an error in middleware success fail, and it's going to return that error. So let's give it a shot, and we don't have to put it anywhere because it's just going to hit every request. So let's hit this root endpoint here, or this / endpoint. So enter, and we get error in middleware success fail. And so I don't think it even makes it to the other function, because once it's returned to, or once it's passed into next and returned, it never makes it because it's an error. And you should also be able to do this with the .message as well. So I'm going to copy and paste this .message, save, refresh, and now we just get the error without the stack trace. So it really just depends on how you want to do it. And so that's it for error handling. There's one more section that's a little bit overkill, but we're going to make this in its own separate folder. So I'm going to copy Hello Express 2, and I'm going to say custom error 11. And then let's go ahead and kill that server, and then npm run custom error 11. Let's open this up. And what we're going to do now is create a custom error handling function. Okay, so what we've done here is we have a middleware function that triggers an error. It just makes an error object and then passes it into next. And then we have a custom error handler that we can use if we put it at the very end as the last app.use, then this will take care of any errors in the middleware chain. But I think it has to go, like, it only handles errors that are actually in the middleware, so like the app.use. So let's go give this a try. I'm going to try to hit this root endpoint here, and it's going to go into trigger an error, and then the error is going to be created and then passed to next, and then this custom error handler is going to take over and handle the error for us. So let's give it a try. I think I have to restart the server. Custom error 11. Okay, no, I already restarted it. So let's hit enter, and then we get, oh no, an error. This is handled with our custom error handling function. And then let's try it again with no error. So maybe I'll make it an if conditional. Okay, so we have the error exists equals true, and that means we will handle this error with the custom error handling function. But if we make this false, then trigger an error. This trigger an error middleware function is not going to trigger an error. So if error exists, it's false. So this doesn't happen, but this else conditional runs, which just hits the next function in the middleware functions. So trigger an error, and then error handler would be next. And this is, there's no errors here, so it's not going to do the rest.send. So I forgot to check if this does run or not. So I believe that this is going to run, but because there's no error, it's not going to do the rest.send. So anyway, let's take a look again. Let's hit enter, and we'll take a look at the logs. That's interesting. So it actually doesn't even run the error handler unless there's an error. So this custom error handler is only going to get run if there's an actual error passed into next. And we're not going to go any farther into custom error handling because it's a little bit advanced, but needless to say, this is how you would create your own error handling function in place of the default error handler that Node.js and Express provide. The next three are just going to be real quick, and the reason is because they're kind of not, I mean, they're only slightly related to Express and Node, and the rest of it is just Mongo and SQL. So if you want to learn more about those, then feel free to check out the videos that I have on those, or the pages on the website about Mongo and SQL. But we're just going to go through this real quick. So I'm going to start with Mongo 12. If I open up the app file, this is the same stuff that we've seen, so I'm not going to talk about that. And then Mongoose is basically just requiring the Mongoose package that helps us connect to Mongo. We've got our environment variable config here, so we can have environment variables. This main here is the most interesting part. This is how we connect. So we have a main function here, which is asynchronous, and it does something that could have an error. And it's asynchronous, and so we can use this .catch to catch and log any sort of errors if there are any. And I'll be honest, I don't do this way of handling errors like with a .catch on a function that's being called. Usually I would do a try catch block. So I may have an error issue here, but just keep that in mind. So, but this is what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to catch the error if there is one, rather than just do a try catch block. So anyway, inside this main function, we attempt to connect to Mongoose, and in Mongoose, or in MongoDB's website, they give you a string, a connection string. So this is the user's password in the account, and then here is the URL to connect to that specific Mongo cluster. So this is basically how we connect, and then you'll either get a success or a failure. And so this is the magic here. And then we turn on the server to listen to it after we've connected to Mongo. And then, so here we're connected to Mongo, and then we can create a schema in for Mongo to determine what a kitten or kitty or our data is supposed to look like. In this case, it's going to be a kitten. And so all we have is a name property, which is of type string. So basically we're saying that the Mongo, or the collection, is going to be a collection of objects with one property of string. And that's going to be our cat. So anyway, then we have the actual model, and this is where we create the kittens. So
we're going to say it's a type of kitten, and it uses the kitty schema to define the shape of the object or the model. And then we can run new kitten with our parameters on it. And this fur color is not going to work because we don't have that in our schema. So I just left a comment here talking about that. And then in here, we're just using, the rest of this code is just using Mongo. And you can check out, again, the Mongo course on how to do Mongo stuff. But we're finding the kittens, and then we're going to pass them into our Pug view. And then down here, we can create a new kitten. And so we do like constant new kitten equals a new kitten or a new object of the shape of kitten, which borrows from the kitty schema. So again, we have our name property that's going to work, and this fur color is not going to work. And then we can save it. So new kitten.save, which will save it to the database in Mongo. And then after that, we redirect. And then we can also get the kittens by their ID. And then again, this is just Mongo stuff. Kitten.find by ID, the specific kitten that you're looking for. And then just to show you real quick, we have our cats here. So even though we have fur color in there, we're only saving the name. So anyway, that is Mongo, and really that's connecting to Mongo. And you know, actually just thinking about this, I'm not even going to bother like showing you the SQL code. It's really nothing special. Like, so I'll show you the connection and that's it. So connect, because I don't want to waste a bunch of time talking about this. So connect to SQL. Basically what we're doing is we just have a connection, and we do MySQL.create connection. All you need is the host. So in a local development environment, it would be localhost, and then by default, it's a username of root with no password, and then you'd select the database to connect to. And so in my case, I've got a NodeDB database. So this is our connection, and then we can connect like this. This is using the MySQL package. And then once we are connected, we can use the connection to make a raw SQL query. And you don't really want to be doing that unless you're like expert level SQL. And even then, you probably don't want to be using raw SQL unless you have to. So anyway, here's another, where we're selecting a specific cat or a specific product from the database. And then we're updating the database. I do a bunch of weird ugly code to do that, but this is not really important. This is the most important thing, is learning how to connect to the database. And then with SQLize, something that you would want to use, or maybe an alternative of SQLize, again, you connect with just the username, the password, the database, and the host, and then maybe what type of SQL, like MariaDB or MySQL or whatever. So this is really the connection part, and that's kind of the most important thing that I wanted to show you when it comes to connecting to databases. If you really do want to play around with this, I've got the working code. All you have to do is create a database and create a table that matches the structure, and then so here we have our title, color, price, and category. I'll just pull over the MySQL here. So the structure of this database is ID, title, color, price, and category for the SQL. So you just have to create a table that matches this and then connect to it. And then in Mongo, you just have to connect and add in your Mongo password and the port that you want to use to connect. And then you would also have to swap out this section of the string. So when you have your Mongo collection all set up, or your database, you'd hit connect to my app or whatever, and then it would give you the string. You just have to swap this part out of this part of the string out, and then you would have a working Mongo app. So hopefully this code is helpful. I know this kind of fell apart at the very end, but this really is, I don't want to get too far into Mongo and SQL. I want to keep this about Node and Express. So hopefully this tutorial was helpful in teaching you the basics and the fundamentals of Node.js and Express. Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe to our channel and click the bell to be notified when we release new tutorials. Also be sure to like the video and leave a comment to let us know what you think. Lastly, check out the link or links in the description. We usually create a blog post to go with the tutorial, and we might have a newsletter or course or something to check out as well. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.